So I went to my Goodwill bins and picked up these two pieces. This is a mirror. I've already removed it from the back to show you. These are not wood, they're like a plastic or something like that. They're old. This little, I don't know if you would call this a curio cabinet or just a little shelf that you hang on the wall, or you can sit it up. It does have a flat bottom. They're both very pretty and scrolly and ornate, and they both need a lot of love. This thing is so grungy, but easily enough you can take the screws off the back. Look at that. Ugh, so thick. You just take the screws off the back, pop it off, and get it cleaned up. So I'm going to start off by just using a soft shoe brush to remove all the surface dust off of this frame. Then I'm going to take some alcohol on a terry cloth rag and just rub it really good and try to get in all the little cracks and turns and crevices. You can see all the dirt on that cloth there. Okay, so here's the back off of the shelf, and I've got it outside. My first step to very many steps to get this thing clean. Started off with some Method degreaser. It's heavy duty. So I'm just going to spray this down quite heavily and let it soak. Then I had to soak it in the bathtub. Then I had to use dish soap and vinegar and baking soda. It was just a process. I used Rust-Oleum 2X after everything was clean and dried in the sun. And so here's 2 coats on here. And it turned out very nice. I was sure to get in all the little corners and spray it from all angles. It was a new can of paint, and it took the entire can of paint to do these 2 items. So here is the shelf without the back on it. Isn't this a beautiful piece? This is definitely something I'm going to be keeping. Now, when I spray painted this, I was sure to do the bottoms of the shelves, the top of the shelves, the inside walls, and all of that with the paint. So it has been thoroughly covered. It's not streaky, but it kind of looks like it in the shadows there. It cleaned up quite well, but like I said, it took lots of work to clean it up. That's a big transformation. Even without going any further, that's a huge transformation. It looks like a totally different piece. So I'm going to take some of this wax, and then I have this little chippy brush, and I'm going to start using this on my mirror frame. So you just want to dot a little bit in there, and you want to wipe some of it off. I went a little too heavy-handed the first couple of swipes, so you know, I learned better. I did better the next time. But you know, it's just it will wipe off easily. So if you do what I do and you got a ton on there, you can easily fix that when you go back over it and wipe it off. So none to worry. I wanted to be sure that I got down in all the cracks and the crevices, just like when you clean it, because this is going to bring out all the texture on this piece and on the other piece. So I'm going around all of the scroll work. I'm going around the indentions that are around the outside and the inner part of the frame. And then see, I just use a dry cloth to wipe over. I'm going to do the same thing here, and you can see when you put the wax on the difference that it makes, the age and the dimension that it brings back to the piece. I want it to look old. It's an old piece, it has old detail, and I don't want it to look brand new. It wouldn't look quite right in my house if it did. So once it's all wiped off, this is how it looks. Gonna do the same thing here. And with this one also, since it is a shelf, I'm going to be sure that I get all over the top edges of the scroll work that's on the top. All of the greenery and the flower and it's like a fleur-de-lis in the center. I'm gonna go around that really well. Just gonna make this thing look like it's almost like putting the age back into it. After you make it look new with the white paint or whatever paint you're using, you want to put the age back into it. I'm just flicking that brush back and forth across the edges there on all of that trim and from a bunch of different angles. And then you can put a little bit on your shelves if you feel like you want to do that. But you can see here how it is there on that work. You can see that on the little leaves in the scrolly part. I love this. And then of course you can see me down there on the bottom, and I'm just putting it on there as well and getting it all along the sides. And this is how it is looking. Much better. It really brings out all of those details right there. It's just gorgeous. So now we're going to go on to this old mirror, which is grubby, and you don't even realize it's as dirty as it is until you see the cloth that you're using, and it's absolutely filthy. You see that? Ugh. So there's some spots on here, and I didn't know if they were going to be able to come off or not, so I was just sure to get around all of the streaks and spots to see if they're permanent or if they can be removed. I just started off with, it was some tissue paper I think that I had laying there, and then I'm using a microfiber. It's actually a sock to dry that off. Then I'm going to pop this gently back in and grab the original backing that was there, and I'm going to cover that with some cardboard, or you can use construction paper, you can use felt, you can use whatever you have, but I had a piece that was approximately the size of this, and I went ahead and used it to cover the back of it to make it look a little bit better and to give the mirror a little more stability, that I do not want that thing to fall out. And this is the result. A little closer look of what this mirror is going to. Now we're going to work on the backing. If I would have had another piece of vintage paper, I would have used that, but I didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and use this burlap, which I think will be a nice backing as well, and I think it'll look fine with my farmhouse decor. So I'm just going to add a little hot glue. Make sure that when you cut out your burlap fabric that you have enough on the sides that you can roll up. I did cut one side. I actually had it all cut correctly, but as I was pulling to glue it down, I actually pulled too much on one side. So, but I fixed it. I'm going to fold that corner over to make it look nice and neat. Add a little more glue there, and then you can put a clamp on it to hold it in place while you go along and glue the rest of the edge. And this is the final look of that. You can definitely iron your burlap if you wanted to do that, but I'm not worried about it because it will lay flat once I get it on here. You realize I'm putting this back on upside down, but it fits exactly the same either way. No one's going to see the back of it, right? It's going to be on the wall. I'm going to add my hangers back that go along the top and all the original screws that came out of it. You can use a little bit of construction paper, cardboard, poster board, whatever you have to go on the back if you'd like, or you can leave it naked because it's going to be against your wall most likely. And then this is how it looks with the backing on it. I suppose you could just go without a backing if you chose to, or put some paneling back there. Some chippy wood would be pretty in the back too. And here we go, nice and styled. I just have some of my miniature baskets that I collect and a jar of beads and a little bit of greenery laid on there to give you an idea of how it looks. I think it was worth the work. Turned out looking great. And then here is the mirror. And it's just hung up there for you to see. What do you think? Which one do you like the best? And do you think that these pieces would fit into your home decor? Is this something you would be interested in trying? I'm going to be using some of these decorative balls. These are different types of, almost, I want to say wooden and also vine. I'm going to use a 5-inch wreath and one of the bigger orbs here. It has wire on the inside, like a wire frame or a metal frame. I'm going to do what's going to be my bottom right now is what I'm attaching to it. This is like my base. And I'm going to attach this in 4 sections and leave a little bit of my pipe cleaners there. Leave a little bit of length, like an inch probably, on each section. And I'm just going to go into quarters and do 1 on each quarter. All you have to do is kind of bend a little loop to make it thread through easier. Then I'm going to do the same thing right in the center of that section, right on the bottom. Next, I'm going to use some jute cord. I've got about 16 inches, but you can vary the lengths. And you're going to tie off each of these orbs. Do a couple of knots so that it is nice and secure, and be sure that you tie it on a piece that is actually attached and not loose, because sometimes they will be loose. Now, I've flipped this over, and on the center top, what's going to be our top, I have just fed a little bit of that jute through there, and I'm going to do a little knot so that I have a hanger right there on the top. So there you go. This is going to hang. Now we're going to flip it back over to the bottom. I'm going to undo the twist tie just a tad and start adding the ropes with the smaller orbs on it. I'm going to twist that in, and then I'm going to trim off the little extra because I don't need the extra anymore. Do the same thing with each of the other sections. You want to vary your length, but since we're not cutting it or tying it down, twisting it up in this will allow you to look at it and make adjustments, make it higher, make it lower, however you want to do these, because you do want these to be hanging at different levels. And this way you can pull that jute back and forth through the loops that you have in that chenille stem. So next I'm going to start pulling off some greenery that I have. Just pulling off all these little segments. These are all thrifted. Every bit of this is thrifted, except for the jute. And I'm just going to start adding these in where that big orb meets the little wreath that's underneath it. So there's a little space there, and I'm going to put these pieces, I don't know what kind of greenery this is, but I like it. It's very airy. And I'm just going to do that all the way around. Then I'm going to add some to the top of each one of the smaller orbs. I'm going to add two, one on either side of each of the smaller orbs. It's very easy to do. Little hot glue will hold it in there. You can use a different type of adhesive if you're going to have this outside in a windy place, you know, however you want to do it. Then I'm going to take little strips of jute and I'm going to tie bows in the top over the knot on each one of these. That's going to give it a little added security because it is right underneath the knot. And then I'm going to take 3 strips of 10 inches and I'm going to tie a couple of little stacked bows in the center. Now after the bows are tied, I'm just going to go up and add 4 or 5 pieces of that same greenery to the top. Here it is completed. A little piece of porch decor. This is a thrifted piece that I got from Goodwill. And it needs some love. So I'm going to clean it up nicely. Now you see that it is all clean. I lightly sanded over the scuff marks and I spray painted it 2 coats of the flat white paint. Just a little bit on the inside, you won't be able to see it. Then I'm going to take this antiquing wax and a stippling or a stencil brush, and it's a dry brush, and I'm just going to go over all of the high points and the edges and ridges in this little hanging planter. Go down there in those little grooves. And then I'm just going to take a dry tissue. You can use a dry cloth or a dry brush if you like, and I'm just going to lightly rub over that. This is to give it a slightly aged look, and this is how it looks. Here it is outside. Thank you so much for stopping by. So we're going to start off with this that I got from Goodwill. This is a sort of a, I don't know, organizer that you hang on the wall by your door. We're going to give this thing a makeover, and let me tell you, it is extreme, so keep watching. You can easily remove the backing here, so you have lots of options, and the possibilities are endless. It does need some cleaning, so we're going to get to doing that. Just using these little antibacterial wipes and just wiping this entire thing down. Front, back, sides, top, around the hardware, every bit of it. It's always important to clean up your items when you get them from a thrift store anyway, because you don't know what their previous life was like, and you don't know, you know, what germs you're bringing in. Look at all that dirt. giving them a fresh start. So a bath is the first part. Then I'm going to use my metal ruler from Dollar Tree and pop out this little, I don't know, it's almost like a wicker insert. Clean that up. And I'll take the back off and the corkboard off. Put it to the side. That can be brushed off too if you want to brush it off. I'm going to take just my regular little screwdriver I keep in my toolkit over here, and I'll remove this hardware. This makes it so much easier when you are painting an item. Just take the hardware off. Otherwise, you're going to have to paint. You're going to have to tape all around it to keep from getting paint on it, and it slows your process down. So this makes it a lot quicker. Those are tiny screws, so be sure you put everything together in a bag or a bowl. Place them to the side, and I'm going to use this Rust-Oleum 2X flat white paint. I'm going to take it outside and give it 2 coats. I left the back of it just plain. Okay, so now it's time to replace that hardware. I did clean that off. It's black, so it's going to go with pretty much anything. I didn't notice any scratches or damage to it. You could also take your hardware and spray paint it any metal color that you like or whatever works in your decor. The likelihood of finding a piece identical to this is probably not too high. However, my channel is about making it my own, so you make it your own. This is for inspiration because I want you to see what a difference just a little bit of extra time and loving care can do to a project. Then you're going to take some fabric. This is also thrifted fabric. There was a bunch of remnants of fabric, so apparently someone was either maybe making masks or making quilts or crafting with it. And I decided it would be great to cover up my little piece of corkboard. Now I'm just picking which part of this image would be the best, which one's the best fit, and which piece I like the best. I'm taking my rotary cutter. These things are so sharp. And just going down the sides, I want to make sure that I have excess on both sides, about maybe an inch, because I want to wrap it around the back. I won't be gluing this down on the front. We're still going to use it as a corkboard. Now I'm just going to reload that glue gun and start on the back by adding some glue, folding it over and pressing it down. Okay, you can pull out all those little extra strings on the back if it bothers you, but no one's going to see this. Okay, so if you notice when I pop it back in here, there's still some space that didn't get covered, and that is so easy to fix. I'm going to use a little bit of ribbon and just trim that out. This is some Christmas ribbon that I had. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue on the top to hold that piece in place. Be sure you leave it longer on the edges so you can wrap it around the back. Same thing here on the bottom. Just going to go all the way to the edge, and I think it's a nice detail. It looks good with the fabric that I chose. Okay, so there's our corkboard portion. I'm going to place this in the bottom. I think this gives it a very pretty cottage look. Put the backing back in place and then press the tabs back down. Now that portion is good to go. Now we're going to work on the top. I got some of these little signs. They were already pre-made and they had like a little hanger on them. I just pulled the little hanger off the staples and I'm going to hot glue this section to the top. I don't need those little open spots, nor do I need that wicker looking panel for the back. I thought this would be a great option if you wanted to personalize it with your name or put a particular date that you needed to remember, or maybe even a scripture or saying that you enjoy. Now we're going to work on the second panel here in this section, and it didn't have any tabs, so I'm not sure what was there in the first place. We're going to fix that by measuring it. I think this is a 4x6, and I'm just going to trim down some foam corkboard, which came from Dollar Tree. By the way, you can get pretty fabrics also at Dollar Tree if you're lucky in your craft or square section. You could use an old pillowcase or a sheet or a napkin, piece of a tablecloth, whatever you wanted to use. Just, think outside the box a little bit, make it your own. So once I get that cut down, I'm going to make sure that it fits, and it does. Now you could leave that white if you wanted to, but I want to cover it with a coordinating print. So I have some of this that came out of a paper pack from Target, and I got it at Goodwill, I think. And I'm just going to, it's a green, black, and white. I'm just going to measure that out, cut it out, and then glue that down. You could use a glue stick if you want to, or just use some dots of hot glue and put that down on around the edges. And I'm just going to do the top and the bottom. There's no need to cover it in glue. And I'll have a nice, flat, smooth, finished look. I think it looks good with that print that I'm already using. And I've chosen a sticker from it's like a dimensional, see there, sticker from Dollar Tree. They have several packs of these that are really, really nice quality. And I've used them in projects before. I'm just going to press that down, and then using a combination of my scissors to give it a rough cut, and then I use manicure scissors for detail scissors. You'll see those here now. I'm going to go in around closer to it and just trim that out. I wanted to give it some dimension and have it stand off of that section just a little bit. Touched up the little pieces that should have been black that kind of looked white. A little hot glue. I'm going to put it in the center with the backing there and with the bottom section. Look at that. Perfect. Use a little bit of hot glue in there and hold it down. So if you could help me with that, I would appreciate it so much. I found this gorgeous washboard. I have had this thing for probably a year. It has some damage. The feet or the legs down there are not the same length. It looks like something has chewed away at it. Probably a squirrel in somebody's attic. I cleaned it up as good as I could, and now I'm just going to measure so that these feet will sit flat on the floor. Got to use the smallest or the shortest leg as a guide, and then I'm going to cut both of them down just with my miter box and saw. And then I'm going to sand it off so there's no splinters and it looks nice and finished, and you never know that there was any damage on those legs. Same thing, both sides. Get it nice and smooth. Okay, so I love the patina on here. I love that rust on there and the wear down all over the wood, but I need to preserve that rust so that it doesn't flake all over the place and that I can clean it easily. I'm going to just take some Mod Podge and another chippy brush here, and I am just going to coat this thing down. I'm going to get all in between the ridges, also in the little cracks against where the wood is. And then, because I was afraid that dust from the rust would smear a little bit, I saved that rough part for last. I'm going to just use my little tool here, my little heat tool, and I'm going to dry this glue. You can use a hair dryer. You can set it in front of a fan if you want to do it quicker, or you can just put it aside while you work on other crafts. Once it is dry, or close to being dried, I'm going to add a little bit of my antiquing wax into a cup with another chippy brush. And I am just going to swipe it back and forth all over this frame. I'm going to put it on the sides of the frame. I'm going to put it on the top of the frame. And I'm going to add a little extra attention to the corners and where the pieces of the wood meets, because that's where it would collect dust. That's where it would age normally. And I want to keep that look, keep the look of it being aged. I don't want a solid color here. So I'm going to continue along, get right down in all of those little cracks. I'm not adding a lot of paint. Then I'm going to go back with a damp cloth and just wipe it down so that it smears all those ridges out and kind of softens the lines that I created when I was putting that on there. It just kind of blends it out and it looks so much better. Yep. This is a better look, I think. I'm just showing you again. Be sure that you wipe down on the insides too. And this is the look that we have created. To put a hanger on the back, I'm just going to add one of these sawtooth hangers, a little bit of my Fix-All from Dollar Tree. I'm going to place it down approximately where the center would be. And then using a little hot glue, I'm going to give it some quick support right over where the nails would go and allow it some time to dry. So for the next part of this project, we're going to work on a little wreath. My pieces are all thrifted, all of the pieces you see and the wreath. I'm going to pull these apart and cut them into pieces that are fairly the same size and shape. And then I'm going to start placing them down into this wreath. This is one of those
vine, I guess, wreaths, and so you don't have to use glue necessarily to hold your pieces, or any wire or any other type of thing, because a wired piece of greenery or floral will press straight down in here and will hold itself pretty well. Again, if you're going to be using this for outdoors, you want to give it some more support. You want to use some glue, something like that, so that the wind doesn't blow anything away. But I'm going to keep these pieces inside. I really, really love the look of this. And I'm just going to place it around my wreath until I get the fullness that I like. So I don't count here with doing this type of a wreath because I like the cottagey, rustic, wild look. And then I am just going to add in some more of those little green. They look like tiny roses, but that's not what it is. It's more like a seed pod of some type. So I'm going to add those all around. So I'm just going to fluff it out a little bit, and then any places that have a little bald spot, I'm going to take one or two little random pieces from the picks that I had left over, and I'm just going to glue those in so that it's pretty much symmetrical. And then here's kind of a flat spot, so I'm going to add a piece in here. See, it kind of fills it out. Then these had some really pretty little berries, and I'm just going to add those in. And then I can just decide what I want the top to be and what I want the bottom to be, how I want it to hang. Nice and full and flyaway and wispy. I'm going to take just a hanger that I had off of another project. I'm going to push it down into there, and I am going to hot glue it. Okay, so I'm just going to take that over the back. I'm going to slide it straight down through where our hook is. And then pretty much in the center here, I'm going to add some hot glue and a little piece of paper or construction paper right over the back. You can just use a scrap, and that's going to hang it. And then you can just push it toward the center. And look at this little beauty. Now I can use this piece, and I've been hanging on to it forever. So I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to make something wonderful from these pieces. I found this little, I think it's a bill organizer or mail organizer, and it's really lightweight, and I love the look of it. It's pretty. So I'm just going to start by removing the little hanger that had seen better days. I'm going to take my hot glue and go along the bottom, because as you saw before, those little slats can move freely up and down, and I don't want them to do that. I want them to be locked into place. So I'm just going to use the hot glue right up against the border and the edge of those so that nothing comes loose. I've got my little skinny brush here. I like to use this on projects that have a lot of slats or like wicker type things and baskets, because they get in all of the cracks. But you can use a soft shoe brush, anything like that, to clean your objects, or if you want to use Swiffer or something, you could. After it's clean, I'm going to spray it with this Rust-Oleum. I give it 2 good coats and leave it in the sun to dry. And I did leave it outside for about an hour to fully dry after the second coat. While that's drying, I'm going to look at my craft foam. You can get yours at Dollar Tree. I will end up using a white foam that I thrifted. These are some flowers that a friend gave me. So this is what it looks like painted. And now I'm going to use some burlap to make sort of a backing behind the little wicker crisscross there. I'm just going to measure about what I'm going to need for each of those little pockets and then cut it down. I'm going to take a piece of cardboard, and this is from the one of the Dollar Tree calendars. I always save this stuff. It's perfect for projects, little extra things. I'm just going to kind of fold it and press down where I think I'm going to need to cut this and make it like a little guide. Then I'm going to cut out my piece, test it out to make sure it's going to fit in the little pocket, and it fits perfectly. I don't even have to glue it. Yes, I love it when that happens. Then I'm going to take my burlap and just begin to wrap it around this piece of cardboard. I'm using tape here. It's like a masking tape. I'm just using tape instead of hot glue because I do not want to burn my fingers off, and you will with this type of project. So the tape works best, and nobody is going to see it. I'm going to take the bottoms and kind of fold it like you would a present and just add more tape. And this is going to hold it just fine for what we need. And this is what it's going to look like right behind our little crisscross, whatever that is there, whatever pattern. And I'm just going to press it into place. No glue required. I love it. See, we put those in there because I don't want my floral foam showing. So this is a perfect way to hide it, and it gives it, again, that rustic look that I'm always going for in my home. I'm going to take the block, and I just use the big one and cut it right down the middle with my ruler. And rather than gluing it and glue dripping all over my project, I've got some of these wreath pins, or I don't know exactly what they're called. You feel free to comment below and let me know what these are called. But they work perfect for this. I just kind of like straddle them over a piece of the wood and then go straight into the block, and it holds it perfectly. I'm going to take my longest picks for the bottom pocket and just start placing those in as is. So they have greenery on the bottom and they have a long wispy top. I love that. I think it's perfect for this project. They're so dainty, but they're full, and they're just, I love these. But you can use whatever flowers you like. I'm just going to continue around until I get it as full as I like, and I'm going to put some right down in the space between where the foam is and the side of the little pocket. If you want to use glue to secure these down just to make sure, then you can certainly do that, but you don't have to. They stayed very nicely for me just like this. And then for the top piece, for that top pocket, I'm going to cut these down. I'm going to cut the greenery sections away from the flowers, just like this, with my little clippers. Don't ruin your scissors. Then I'm going back in with my pins and securing those to the back so they don't wobble around on the bottom and the top. You can get these at craft stores. And then once they're secure, I'm going to go ahead and go in with my flowers in the back. And for me, these types of flowers, there's really no particular pattern that you use. I'm just looking for equal fullness at the end. You know, I'm just putting my greenery in the back, putting a little bit of the greenery in the front, but I want the little flowers to be the highest section in this top section. And I like that it's graduated, that I have the little short things on the top and that I have the longer ones on the bottom. Again, make this your own. That's what my channel is all about. Now I'm going to make a little bow here. This beautiful ribbon is a linen blend that I got from burlapfabric.com. I love to use this for bows that are kind of small because you don't have to do a lot of fluffing. There's no wire in it. I'm just going to make a very simple bow. You saw how I did that. And then I'm going to make a few knots in the back to hold my bow together so that it can withstand a little bit of pulling and fluffing. And right over that spot that's missing a slat, I'm just going to tie it right down. And now you'll never even know that there's anything missing. I love it so much. I'm going to do a double knot. Certainly feel free to add a little glue if you would like, but I'm satisfied that this is going to stay in place. And then dovetail your ends to whatever length you like. Had them a little bit longer originally, but decided that I would go a little bit closer to the length of the little basket there, or the pocket. And I wanted to add a little more greenery to the top of this bow. So I'm going to add 2 pieces of greenery and a little flower. So to hang it, I'm going to just make a very simple little tie, you see, very simple, just a loop. And then I'm going to use a little hot glue on the back, press it down and hold it in place. I believe in you guys. I know that you can do these. You can use something that you already have and give it a second life. So many options.
I'm going to start off with a little bit of jute, glue gun of course, and the glue sticks. I have a stem here of eucalyptus. I have some fix-all adhesive, one of a 3-pack of metal signs from Dollar Tree, and this thrifted sign that I got at Goodwill. So to start off, I'm going to decide where I want to put this metal sign, and it fits better on the arrow than it does on the plaque because it overhangs a little bit. So I'm just going to fix it down here. I'm going to use a little bit of this fix-all from Dollar Tree because it's going to give it longevity. It's going to hold for a long time. I also have some of these little adhesive foam squares to use in just a moment. And then I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue. Work really quickly when you use hot glue on metal because it'll set up and it won't stick. If you take too long, it cools on that metal. So it doesn't have any support in the middle. And I'm going to use this little foam adhesive square to put it there. But you can get these just about anywhere. I'm pretty sure you can get little foam sticker pieces at Dollar Tree as well. I'm just going to put it under there where it can't be seen, under the thick part of that O, and press it down. Be sure you pick off any of your hot glue that seeps out so it's nice and clean. But firstly, I'm going to make the bow. So I'm going to take this jute cord and leave a little bit of a tail and then wrap it about 14 times around my hand. I'm going to pull it off my hand, securing it so it doesn't unwind. Press it together in the center, and this is going to become our bow. So I'm going to tie it off in a few tight knots right in the center. This makes such a cute little floral type bow. I really like it. It's the first time I've done one this thick. I thought it would look good with this. And this little sign's going to fit nicely into a neutral farmhouse or rustic decor. So I've just taken these loops. I've made some 12-inch loops. I'm cutting the ends. I'm going to fold them in half right in the center. And then the excess string that I have above, I'm going to use to secure that to the back of what is going to be our bow. Just be sure when you get ready to hot glue it down that you remember that this is the back. Doing it this way also gives it a little more room for a little more surface area for the glue so that it has a better connection and that it sticks better onto the surface that you're applying it to. Shouldn't be a problem. This is some rough wood here. Very old looking wood, very worn, to make this cute little bow. I'm going to leave the tails nice and shaggy. Decide where we want to put the pieces. Now, if you want your tails shorter, you could cut them shorter. You can, whatever you want to do with it, depending on what kind of sign that you have. Here's the picks, and I'm going to secure them together with a little bit of jute. Just tying them together in case you don't have floral wire. You can see that this jute works just fine for these smaller plastic type pieces. So I think I want to put it right in the center here, using a good bit of glue, and then going to hold that down. Now these are plastic and there's no wire in this particular part of these picks, so it's easy to kind of adjust them while the glue is still hot and they'll stay in place. So see what I mean? There's a lot of room for glue on the back of there, and it's going to stick down nicely to the jute that is on the greenery and onto the board. This sign originally had a big pink flower in the middle of it. So then I'm going to take one little piece here and put it on the top, just for a little extra, little green on the top there. You can put more, but I don't want to overdo it. What do you think about that? I'm going to take this pedestal. I'm not sure what originally was on it because I got it like this, like something was broken off. And then this little cake pan, they both came from, you guessed it, Goodwill. I'm going to take my Fix All adhesive after I've wiped this down, and just going to add some around there. This is going to make it stick for a long time, ideally. Then I'm going to take my Gorilla Glue in the spaces where I don't have the other glue. I've had in my head a long time that I wanted to do one of these, but I've wanted this for a long time and I'm so pleased with it. I'm glad to be able to share it with you today because it's very easy. You could probably do this with a candlestick or something like that if you wanted to. If you had a new cake pan, you could always age it with some vinegar. So give it some time to dry, and when it's nice and secure, you can choose some ribbon. These all came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just trying to make a decision on which one I want to use here. But this one really speaks to me. I love it, and because of the lace having a little more, I guess, flexibility, it goes around a curve better so that you don't have any puckers and it doesn't stand out. It's easier to curve with all those little holes in there. So I'm just going to quickly work around this pan because again, metal and glue, hot glue, it dries really fast. You can see there that I didn't move it fast enough and it already had dried. So just try to work quickly, protect your fingers, and keep it going there. Zigzag worked better than the single line, so that's what I switched to. And you're going to go all the way around the edge right underneath that little lip. You could leave this off if you didn't want to add this. Your pedestal could just be without the ribbon if that's the way you like it. And now I want to bring some of that ribbon, the look of that ribbon down. So I'm adding about 14 inches of the ribbon here around the neck of this. You could do it up higher because there's a bunch of, on this spindle type candlestick or whatever this pedestal thing is, there's a bunch of little curves. So you could put it around whichever curve that you like. And I'm just going to trim it off so it's not hanging down on my surface. I'm not doing any dovetails on this. I'm just going to cut slants in it. And it's just a simple shoelace bow. Very easy to do. A little dot of glue here and there will keep your ribbon staying down where you want it. I am not really sure what this is, what it was originally, but I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. It's going to be storage in my craft room. So you got to see what it turns out to be. So I'm going to clean it up, obviously, wipe it down good. And then I'm going to take my Rust-Oleum chalk paint. This is a linen white. And I'm just going to coat this entire thing down. Kind of sloppy. It's kind of sloppy looking when you first put this on. If you've never used chalk paint, you really start thinking, what have I done? But be sure you get up all in the crooks and crannies and corners and just give it a good coat. I promise you it does get better. I'm going to cover this whole thing, and then after it has dried, I usually sit mine in front of a fan that I have down in my craft room specifically for these projects. Once it is dried, then you can go ahead and put your second coat on. Now, I didn't completely coat the inside of it because no one is going to see that. I did work on it, but decided I didn't want to spend my time doing that. So now it is completely coated, and see, it looks much, much better. It's a flat look. I'm going to take my sanding block from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to start hitting the edges where naturally paint would chip, with wear. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing it lightly. I'm not doing anything crazy. You could always use a little bit of the Waverly antique wax and go over this instead, or do it also, whichever way you want to do it, whatever your choice is. But for my craft room in this area, I want to leave it this brighter white with just a little bit of paint chips. So these also came from the Dollar Tree. It's a stencil with 4 little sayings on it. And I'm just deciding which one I want and where I want to put it. Then I'm going to cut them into pieces because it's easier to manage. I'm going to take some of my tape. Just tape it evenly as I can there down on that box top. And then I have some black chalkboard paint and a stencil brush that came from Goodwill. And I am just going to start pouncing that up and down. When you stencil, do not sweep it side to side. If you do that, then the paint will go underneath your stencil and it will be very messy and muddy looking. You want to go up and down, straight up and down. All right, and when I feel like I've got the coverage I want, you can do less or more depending on your own taste. I'm going to carefully take that tape off and put the stencil aside. Don't put it where you're going to put your arm back in or your project back in it. That's not a good thing. Not a big problem. You get a lot of thick paint on there. So we're going to move on to a little bow for the top of it. And I'm just using that other ribbon to make a little shoelace bow. And I am going to place it right up there over that hole. I've decided that maybe I would like to add a little bit of jute to that as well. So make a little jute bow to go right on top. Same way, same thing. I am going to dovetail this ribbon on both sides. Really easy. Cutting upward, and it makes that pretty little neat V. Very simple. Going to trim up this jute bow. There they are layered on the top. Just want to cut it down a little bit more. And so here is my jute roll. I'm going to drop it inside. and feed that string right out that hole in the front. Perfect little storage piece so that you're not pulling your jute and the ball is falling down or tangling up on anything. It looks nice sitting on the side of your crafting table, and it fits in great with the decor. And I think we always need a reminder to be kind, right? Yep, I think I like it. Here's the sign. This is the first one. The tray, and here it is loaded up with decor. And then the third one is the box. It's my little storage box.
I got this design from a Louisiana girl. Her name is Julie from Julie's Designs and Signs, or Signs and Designs, because I'm giving her all credit for this idea. I saw it and I thought, oh my gosh, I already have the pieces to do this at my house. So everything you see is thrifted except for the paint, which is it's an antique wax. It's perfect. This is so easy. Don't be intimidated by power tools, ladies. If you've never used a power tool, don't be intimidated. This is so easy. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of that antique wax in the bowl that I always use for my antiques wax, as you can see there, and just a little bit of water. And I'm going to make a bit of a wash for this. Tap a little bit off so I don't go completely nuts with it. And then it's just going to run everywhere. You see it on the table there? We don't care. I don't want it to be completely dark. I want this to just look aged, and I want it to look, you know, a little bit darker, a little bit of a richer color. All I do know for sure, for certain, is that I love warm, earthy tones, and I love a comfortable house. So how's that? Now I'm going to do all three of these the same way. Do you see that's a chopping mat that I use to paint on? And you can get those at Dollar Tree, and they're in a 2-pack. So be sure you go pick one of those up. And then they're easy to wash off in the sink. That is so easy. And it really doesn't take long when you do it this way for the stain to dry. So pretty much we made a stain. All right, so this is a strainer of sorts, and you see it's kind of bent and not exactly flat on the bottom. If yours is this way, just go ahead and press that down. This is metal and it's kind of easy to maneuver. So just press your bottom a little bit flatter. It doesn't have to be perfect. Again, rustic. We're not trying to achieve perfection here. We just want it to look like it's aged and look like it's been used before. Okay, in the bottom of this, there are 6 little marks that do not have holes. This makes it so simple for me to go in and figure out where I'm going to put my legs. So I'm just going to use my paint marker that I got from Dollar Tree, which I love for so many reasons. I'm going to mark these. Take my drill. Now the drill bit is the same size as my screw, and that's important to know because you're going to put a screw through the hole you want it to fit. So just be sure that you know what screws you're using so you can do that. Also drilling down and then using reverse to drill back out of the hole. Now I'm just going to drill into here. Pre-drilling these holes will make it easier for the screws to go in. And you have to hold this in such an awkward way, or at least I haven't figured out an easier way to do it. I'm fairly new to power tools, as you could probably see here. So I'm just looking for the hole, and there it is. You can see the dark mark where I had it, and I'm just starting the screw off just a little bit. I'm going to put that little leg on there and then screw it down. See there? So you know where I'm going with this? Okay, now I'm tightening them up to make sure that they stay. You're also going to want to use something to seal that if you're going to have it, you know, on an area where it's not under a covered porch, and I have a covered porch, so I'm not going to have to worry about it, but I still did use a sealer on the legs and around the screw holes. And it's a planter. Julie, you're a genius. I know you probably won't see my videos because you have a really big channel, but you are so awesome. I love this idea, and I plan on making more. I see these things at Goodwill all the time. Even the little legs came from Goodwill. These fern picks, they came from Goodwill. These things look so real. So what do you think about these projects? And please tell me you're going to try at least one. Check out this rectangle for more, and I'll see you soon.